Hello everyone, GM. How's it going? My name is Max. I'm from Connext. We are an interoperability protocol, and today we are presenting with some amazing panelists scaling ETH. I think as a brief introduction, right, we're now at the stage when we have proven that Ethereum can scale, right? And then the question now becomes, how do we do it? What are the solutions that allow this scaling? How do they differentiate themselves? And more than everything, why do we do it, right? What are the interesting use cases that are coming up? And so here with me, I have a fantastic list of panelists. I'm going to give them the word to introduce themselves. Marco, do you want to start?
For sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm Marco, and I'm one of the founding members of LINEA. I'm also leading the growth. That means that I'm in charge of building the ecosystem on top of LINEA, working with great partners, and try to make something that can be meaningful.
Hello, everyone. This is Wen Hau from Outlayer. At Outlayer, we're building a decentralized interlayer that allows people to spin up application-dedicated rollups within 5 minutes. It happens in a decentralized way whereby this interlayer is run by a value network that it's run by a pool of sequencers. You could think of it as a community member. So at Outlayer, I handle more on the ecosystem side. And happy for the panel today.
Hi everyone, I'm Marco. I'm with Polygon since a couple of years. I take care of everything about the DAO ecosystem on Polygon and of Polygon Village, that is the ecosystem support program for all the builders.
Guys, you might want to take the microphone a little bit closer just to make sure that people can hear you.
Hello, I'm Rolf Versluis. I'm co-founder of Horizon Labs, which started out in 2017 as Zencash, a privacy project. We've continued along over the years and grown. And right now, we have a unique cross-chain transfer protocol, and we just launched an EVM on a sidechain. And the cross-chain transfer protocol goes from account-based to UTXO-based with ZK proofs. We're launching it as a full ecosystem. And so part of the scaling is multi-chain concept. And excited to be here as one of the sponsors of the conference.
Nice pitch, Rolf. Thank you. Hi, my name's Gavin Thomas. I'm from Obscuro, one of the co-founders, and it's a layer 2, but crucially, it's an encrypted layer 2. So we're bringing encryption to Ethereum using secure enclaves.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Let's try to keep the conversation engaging. Like whenever you feel like you have something to say, just add it. I think as a first broad topic, what we wanted to cover a little bit was around the different models that we are seeing for Ethereum to scale, and the different approaches, architectures, and then we can touch base on the different use cases maybe. So I think one of the key value propositions that some of the layers are trying to position with is around being user-friendly for builders, so creating the best DevX. Maybe Marco, you want to touch that, or you want to start with that? Like how are you guys building on that model, and what is your vision?
Yeah, actually, it was a strong decision that we had at the very beginning. We worked a lot of time. Like we started 5 years ago working on rollups, on optimistic rollups. It was a bit different. It was consensus rollups. Then we started 3 years ago working with ZK rollups. Especially to focus on privacy, like private anonymous layers, private anonymous transaction rollups. But the real decision started 2 years ago when we started focusing on ZK EVM. So that was our, and that is today our big decision point. We want to stick with EVM. The EVM is the space where you find the biggest community of builders out there. It's just impressive, the number of developers you find in the EVM space. And so we believe that this was the success of Ethereum, and we need to stick with this. And that's why we decided to stick with the ZK EVM. And we were pretty bold in this decision. Even if you look at some concept like account abstraction, we had the opportunity to extend EVM, implement account abstraction at protocol layer, but we started questioning this approach because, you are going over the EVM. You start creating lock-ins. If someone builds using your protocol level account abstraction, then if they want to jump on another EVM, they are locked in.
Yep.
So our stickiness to the EVM was literally our main decision point. And that's for this reason, because whatever will bring the next masses of users, the next millions of users, it will not come from the network. It will come from a use case. Yep. It will be a DApp. So we need to work with developers, with dApps.
Absolutely.
That's the
so EVM maxing,
yes,
if you want. Excellent. Maybe we can jump to the other Marco then, instead, because you guys are the other zkVM in the space.
Well, I actually agree with everything that Marco just said. There is a good reason why we are building on top of Ethereum. You know, there are many layer 1. Why becoming a layer 2 on Ethereum while extending the block space for Ethereum? Well, if you look at it from the Metcalfe law perspective that says that the value of the chain is equal to the square of the users, well, Ethereum is incomparable with, if you take in consideration other layer 1. So the number of developers, the number of the users, the number of transactions that actually Ethereum as an EVM chain has is something that cannot be compared with other layer 1s. So, well, as you know, Polygon started as a side chain with the POS chain that we have already, kind of side chain, but the decision to move to something that could be far more scalable started years ago with the decision to move on the zkVM space. And what we already shipped was the zkVM layer, and right now we just announced the CDK, the Chain Development Kit, to launch app chain that are based on zkVM and could be layer 2, full layer 2, or layer 2 with as validiums. So having the data availability on off-chain, but secured with zk proofs. The addition, the additional point that we are working on is the what's the name? The bridge, the unified bridge that will give the chance to all the chains that are part of the stake. So the POS chain that there is a proposal to move it to a Validium. The zkVM chain and all the chains that will be launched on CDK, they will be able to share liquidity and composability. And it would give the chance to everyone that is launching their own chain to have seamless experience on top of a Polygon with the same, with a very short time also improving on Ethereum, on having security on Ethereum. We expect 0.5 seconds to have everything on Ethereum. This is what we are doing now, so we are very, very close to what Marco was saying. zkVM is our, EVM space is our home, and that's why we built zkVM. Additionally, as you know, there are 4 types of zkVM. Polygon zkVM was a type 2, and it's moving to type 1 in order to give total seamless experience, as EVM experience to everyone that is building on top of Polygon.
Awesome. I don't know how many people in the audience know about the different categories of zkVM. I don't know if you want to cover briefly that.
Well, it's very simple. The type 1 means that there is equivalence with Ethereum, so you don't need to do any additional work than changing, of course, the RPC and so on to deploy what you're deploying, while on type 4, as could be, for example, Starknet and so on, there is not the full equivalence. It means that you would need to develop it on another language and then using a compiler in order to go back to Solidity. So type 1 is equivalent to Ethereum. Type 4, it means that actually from a ZK perspective, it will be faster. It will be far more well, performing as ZK, but it won't be equivalent to Ethereum.
Awesome, thank you. Rolf, I feel like you are a little bit on an outlier compared to the rest of the members here, so I would like you to maybe bring another perspective here on, a different model, right, on scaling blockchains and different, like, bringing adoption with another type of architecture, which is not Ethereum-based necessarily, but maybe you have different vision, different approach. Can you share anything about it?
Yeah, just like Marco said, the vast majority of developers and excitement is in the Ethereum space. People know how to code on Solidity. People know how to use composability to bring things together. And this is where a lot's happening. Now, one of the things that we learned as a project launching in the 2017 bull market was that you have to make people care that you even exist. There's so many projects that have been launched over the years, and many of them have kind of faded away. Now back then you would do community. You would create community through GPU miners, which I know sounds ancient to people here, but it was last year, I think, that we moved away from that. And then to be able to develop, well, applications that could bring in users from outside this space. So this seems, when you're coming at it and been in the industry for a little while, that the Ethereum space is somewhat insular. There's a lot of cool things that happen within, like I remember hearing about DeFi first at Bitcoin Amsterdam in 2018, and I'm like, well, that works, but gosh, going against the finance industry seems a little crazy. Banks will, cut your throat in a hurry. However, as it's matured, all the capabilities that can be done that have been developed in Ethereum and have been proven out through attacks, through security hardening, through, like I said earlier, composability, now we can start extending outside of strictly the Ethereum space and start bringing money and interest into the space. And so by doing that, we provide a service, maybe an entertainment service like gambling, or maybe a security service by doing on-chain identity and being able to do public-private key encryption for every communication. I'm sure you guys have heard about the AI attacks where they'll get AI to mimic a voice and call your parents and say, send me money right away. That's not going to slow down. AI attacks are going to get more and more powerful. Not only will be the voice attacks, there'll be video attacks, and perhaps at some point in the future, just like PGP was used to secure email, which is now GPG, perhaps every person-to-person communication is going to have to be fully encrypted, again, using decentralized identity, using verifiable credentials, published on-chain, and managed. And who's going to build that future? Well, the people in this room are going to build that future, because this type of extensible blockchain that works worldwide is going to have these types of capabilities. So I'm excited about being somebody that's part of an organization that's going to be able to make our world a better place.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, Gavin, maybe it would be nice to hear about your guys' vision and how you're trying to differentiate yourself in the layer 2 landscape. And why?
Yeah, sure. So it's interesting, Marco, how you talk about being EVM compatible and making it super easy for developers to actually use your product. I think that's the #1 starting point, and that certainly was for Obscuro. Having spent a few years building a blockchain that wasn't EVM compatible and then learning the experience, which Marco knows quite well. And actually, the scalability conversation has kind of moved on, I think. When we were talking about this stuff maybe 6 months ago, 12 months ago, it was about speed. It was about being able to just give a very immediate response in your dApp. And that kind of felt like the minimum criteria for any kind of application built in Web3. And when you ask about the UX now, we're now thinking about the additional pieces that you're touching on, Rolf. It's about composability. It's about less complexity, it's about multi-chain capability, and it's about, for us, it's about encryption. So it's about being able to add a whole new raft of use cases. You mentioned gambling, Rolf, which is quite interesting, because gambling is highly dependent on a degree of encryption and a degree of privacy, and with something like Obscuro, you can do that. So yeah, scalability on Ethereum has now gone beyond what was the original argument about let's just make it fast and responsive.
Can you give us a very brief highlight on how do you make it encrypted? How do you make it obscure?
Super quick. We're using secure enclaves. So basically, in a nutshell, the entire EVM runs within an encrypted space, and so all inputs, outputs are encrypted. The entire smart contract is encrypted, and we produce an encrypted roll-up that lands on Ethereum. That's it. That's simple. Super easy to use.
Nice, amazing. That's very fascinating technology. And yeah, last but not least, I think you have a fantastic service. Like I've seen some of the UI being able to spin up a new rollup with a click. It's fantastic. Yeah. Like how, what type of future are you trying to build with the services? What do you guys envision for the space?
Yeah, I think for Ethereum and scaling in general, we kind of know what is the end game of Ethereum scaling solution would be like. Ethereum will be a settlement layer of all rollups in general, and all the rollups will be secured by Ethereum in general. So we also tend to shift from a monolithical approach to a modular blockchain approach, whereby you're able to customize all kinds of things that you want. For example, if you want a fraud-proof, such as Canon, for example, or Arbitrum multi-round fraud-proof in general, or you want a validity-proof using tools like RISC0, for example. And also you're able to select like different kind of runtimes you want, either your EVM, your WASM, or your SVM. This is also customizable. Recently we see something interesting with Eclipse. It's even though it's running on SVM, your data is submitting on Ethereum, for example. And other than that, you're able to store your data on top of places other than Ethereum. For example, Celestia, EigenDA, even though it's not ready. But I feel like, in general, scaling solution-wise, we're getting a lot of different kind of infrastructure. And with modular blockchain in general, you're able to connect bits by bits to form the layer 2 or layer 3 that you prefer, including what kind of SDKs you want, like either Polygon CDK, either OP Stack, Arbitrum Orbit, or even an outlayer stack in general. And for our goal, RAS in general, it's a roll-up as a service, whereby usually we run the nodes for the project. However, for our vision, we want to give the power to the community that the community run the nodes in general. So decentralized sequencers is one of the most important factor for this. And other than that, you're also having an important security such as fraud proof or validity proof is relatively important in scaling in Ethereum in general. So in general, I think that right now we kind of know what the end game will be like, and with all this infrastructure, even Connext, even LINEA, etc., Polygon CDK, and all the other infra, you're able to connect bits by bits and build the infra that you would like in general. Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious, who is the target of Altlayer? Like, who will want to build a roll-up rather than an app on top of a roll-up?
So our target audience is anyone that wants to have their own block space in general, so that they don't want to be on a general purpose chain to compete block space with other people. At the same time, they want a very fast speed. We achieve a latency level of 100 milliseconds. So some of the games, such as fully on-chain games, we will kind of explain later. They want a dedicated block space which they're able to customize, such as zero gas, native gas token as the gas token in the L3s in general, or anyone that want to capture the value of the chain just for themselves in general. You can think of it like Ronin Network, DYDX having our own app chain, a lot of fully on-chain games running on a short-term roll-up just for the games, like a community round. Anyone that wants to have the customization ability and also the dedicated block space in general. Yeah.
Sounds good.
There's another big utility for Altlayer that we're seeing in the ecosystem is, this is for more technical people. Let's say you have a team and you want to test it up, but you don't want to go on Girly or in the future on Sepolia. It's extremely easy to spin up a testnet with Altlayer, and it's extremely useful because you are able to speed up the development, to avoid noisy neighborhoods, spike of fees, and do gas profiling much better.
Yeah, it makes sense. I like it. I think it's a fantastic, fantastic service. Yeah, you mentioned some of the use cases. I think we can switch mode into, okay, we have these different models that can be applied where when people can build on top of it. What do you guys envision being built? Like, what use cases are you excited? What do you think is underestimated right now? Can you give us some example of something that's been built in your ecosystem, maybe?
So there are, as LINEA, we are targeting 3 types of markets with high priority. Actually, one of them we don't see even as a market. We see as an infrastructure piece, that is DeFi. For us, you cannot have any meaningful use case if you don't have a solid DeFi infrastructure on the back, just like in the real life. Think about your real life without financial services. You will not have PayPal, you will not have Apple Pay or Venmo. So DeFi is an infrastructure and it is an enabler for meaningful use case. We are trying to push a lot on gaming and social use cases. There's one use case that we include into the social one that is highly underrated at the moment. We're trying to push a lot on it, and it's on-chain attestations.
On-chain attestation.
Yeah. There's a fundamental issue in the space that is given by fragmentation. So you have a lot of people working on your chain attestation, but each one of them has their own registry. Well, there are approaches like we are building a public good that is called Verax, that it's really a public good. We are building together with partners. And this is a chance to have a single registry that is permissionless and anyone can deploy a module, so they can retain the sovereignty of their own module. So attestation will spark a lot of things, and the other things that I'm very excited is use cases that are enabled by this new block space offering and supply that we have, that are basically ZK dApps. So dApps that use zero-knowledge proof on client side to enable privacy and encryption, not at infrastructure level like Obscuro, but at really specific level. So a single dApp for on-chain anonymous voting, for example. These are not possible today on Ethereum. It's too much expensive.
Yeah, interesting. Awesome. So basically, like, there needs to be a basic DeFi layer, I guess, with an AMM, like kind of money market protocol, and so on, and then all the other use cases can be built on top. Yeah, I know, Rolf, were quite like bullish on attestations as well. I don't know if you guys want to cover something.
Personally, I'm very bullish on attestation. I think that one great use case for an app chain would be governance, and I think that attestation are a very big part of the future governance, because it will be based on what we can call a reputation that will be based on on-chain attestation. From our point of view, from Polygon point of view, well, we have right now two general purpose chain, we can say. One, a Validium that will be very fast and very cheap for, let's say, gaming or any other kind of applications. ZK EVM will be mostly dedicated to DeFi, but then everything else, everything that will be built on top of CDK is actually what the communities, what the devs, what the other organization will build on top of it. So we are not going to, I don't know, tell others what to do, because at the end, we have already, for example, the immutable X use case, that is the gaming use case on top of us. There is the Gnosis Pay chain that is on the CDK, and there will be more. So we prefer not to tell others what to build, because actually the market will be able to regulate itself. We offer a range of tools in order to launch the chain that they need.
Plus, we don't know yet. That's the reality.
We don't know yet.
Well, to add on to that, all the protocols have where they are now and where they intend to be in the future. And there's a back and forth between being able to develop quickly in a direction that the founders and visionaries can see where it needs to go, and then true decentralization. Like, one of the things that we just did recently at Horizon Labs was launch a DAO. So I was part of the foundation that helped direct the developer fund for years, and now I'm out of a job. So we developed the protocol, we've got great developers and track record, and now the community runs the whole thing. So we have voting, we have proposals, all sorts of things like that. So decentralization is certainly a step along the path, and everybody needs to, like you said, Marco, go in their own direction and speed. But in order to not have these trusted people or forgers or elements that can cause a problem with the entire protocol, we really need to get to decentralization. But you also kind of need to develop quickly and get to where you want to be, so you're providing usefulness to all the other people in the environment.
Fantastic. Gavin, anything to cover on your side from a use cases perspective?
Yeah, we're talking about use cases, aren't we? Yeah. So crucially for us, I think, being an infrastructure platform, essentially, as Marco says, when you bring something like encryption, it's a new opportunity. It's a new opportunity for Web3, but it's an opportunity that we've all been used to, and we've seen it play out before. Because when Web 1 existed, it was completely unencrypted, and it was kind of mediocre. It was the information superhighway, right? It was just information. And then when HTTPS arrived and encryption could be applied, and that led to Web 2. And then what did we end up with? We ended up with eBay, PayPal, Amazon, Google. And that whole internet world that we're used to now was enabled by encryption. So it's our belief that bringing encryption to Web 3 is going to be that next step. Now, I don't want to guess what the ultimate use case is going to be. I don't think any of us know who out there is going to build the next amazing application. But we do need to put the foundational pieces in place. I think what I get particularly excited about personally is the opportunity for on-chain gaming, autonomous gaming. If some of you know, I think Vitalik's original reason for building Ethereum was because he got kicked out of World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Right. So he wanted this unstoppable computer. And so we hope we're delivering, almost Vitalik's original vision, an encrypted, unstoppable autonomous machine that can run your game, and you can have your assets in there, and you can have your hidden maps in there, and you can have your loot boxes in there. That's particularly exciting for us.
I feel that in the moment that we start to think about new native crypto applications rather than just converting the existing one from Web 2, that's where we're going to see real innovation and real growth and adoption. And I think it will be fascinating. Anything to add on top of it?
Yeah, as mentioned by Gavin, we're quite bullish on autonomous world because the thing about this is you're able to have a world that is not controlled by anybody. At the meantime, everything is on-chain. You wouldn't have any issues that someone can bot you or someone can basically hack the game, or for example. Second thing that we look at is also we want to make games, pretty much Web3 games, feel like Web 2 in general. That's why we currently at Outlayer, we're building tools to make people play games. When they play games, it feels like playing a Web 2 game. We are super bullish in all kinds of mini games, for example, tic-tac-toe, even like 2048, the swiping tiles game that you play. And other than that, we also are very bullish in terms of consumer application, as you see with Frentech. I feel like all of the infrastructure provider right now is also looking into a lot in consumer applications, as right now we're not trying to grab users from the Web3 space. Instead, we're trying to grab users outside of Web3, which is the Web 2 space, whereby even we get 1 to 2% of the Web 2 users. I think all of the infrastructure providers will be very happy. And at the meantime, it's the time that we really show that this tech are able to serve the world instead of just Web3 projects in general. Yeah.
Amazing. I'll stop for a second. Is there any question from the audience? All right. Start thinking about some, because we might come back later.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
So what kind of pushbacks you get when you're approaching Web 2 gamers about Web 3? Is crypto a dirty word to those guys?
The thing about this is, in the past that there's a lot of P2E games that generally they come into Web3s because they're able to sell NFTs and sell tokens in general. So I've talked to several Web2 companies, including like Ubisoft in France. They mentioned they invest in a game around like 50 million, for example, just for a game. And in order to make revenue out of this game, the game is fun enough. However, currently in Web3, we have a different kind of approach, whereby how you generate money is through TGE and selling NFTs, which doesn't make sense, whereby I feel like builders in the gaming space should focus on building games instead of selling assets in the initial start, and not using incentive as a mechanism to attract gamers in general, whereby autonomous world is very interesting. There's no really monetary value inside it. For example, Sky Strive, Dark Forest, for example, which anyone could spin up their own community round, which is round-based, and they have a pretty much united community whereby everyone play the game because they like it. It's not because there's money behind it in general. Yeah.
Gavin, is there any game on Obscuro that you've seen emerging that is beyond gambling, beyond pure gambling?
I mean, we talk about iGaming and gambling a little bit. No, I'm not going to try and call it. I don't want to predict it. As I say, I think there's a type of gaming that we haven't even discovered yet that's going to arrive on Web3 that's enabled by this unstoppable experience.
Yeah, I think Frentech, even if as a simple concept, is definitely a Web3 game that can have several applications and several things that can be built around it. I don't know, you guys, if you have any comments.
I've seen at least this is the third definition of Frentech. Someone defined social use case, someone defined social fi, someone DEX. It's probably a DEX.
A people DEX.
It's shitcoin DEX, probably we can say. How
Shit
do you
people?
define? No, not shit people. It's inherently the value of the token. You cannot say it's backed by a person. Mm-hmm. The value of the token that represents your shares, and you are not getting my share of my revenues, of my income. So we can say it goes into definition. My share goes into definition of a shitcoin. Okay. Most probably. So it's a shitcoin DEX at the end of the day, and it's for me, it's a DeFi use case. Now you mentioned it, it's a game. So it's very interesting. This is the fourth definition that I heard about friend tech.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it exciting for me. It's such a weird experiment that doesn't fit into the previous categories, and then
it's genius. I mean, genius user experience, because actually, when we talk to games, the main issue is the Web3 games provide a poor user experience for many gamers out there. So they solved the user experience. It's very flawless user experience, and they have a way to create engagement at the end of the day. But in the definition, I'm not saying it's a social or even a game, probably. It's engaging, yes, of course.
A hybrid one. Oh, fair enough. Yes.
I was going to say part of what you can do to figure out what's going to be successful is certainly study history and see how people have done things in the past. And so looking back through different civilizations is really interesting. And then for me, it's reading science fiction. So one of my favorite authors is Neil Stephenson. And many of you people have probably read Cryptonomicon and Snow Crash and Diamond Age. And so we see how these ideas in science fiction we're able to put them in effect. And so if you, from a vision standpoint, say, okay, some of these ideas from science fiction are going to be implemented perhaps differently, as in Cryptonomicon, it was electronic currency, but it was backed by gold. And now we realize we can have an electronic currency that's not backed by anything, and it seems to work just fine. Well, I guess many dams worth of proof-of-work mining is what backs Bitcoin at this point, but perhaps it'll change to proof-of-stake like Ethereum at some point in the future. Maybe not, we'll see. But by using the general nature of how people interact with each other and some of these science fiction books, I'm a big believer that metaverse is going to continue to grow and be extremely important. And we have implementations of metaverse now, whether it's Decentraland or Sandbox. But as the compute gets faster, as we're able to have more bandwidth, and we're able to really put our identities into our avatars, hopefully it's not going to be a centralized metaverse like Facebook is doing. Hopefully it's a decentralized one, done in many different ways, with what's the equivalents of NFTs now being able to be brought from one metaverse to another. You have Web3 is the ownership internet, right? I mean, we need to be able to have ownership and control of all our things. So I don't know the specifics of the games that are going to be successful, but I expect that they're going to implement historically what people have enjoyed doing, and then some of these visions of the different science fiction authors.
Personally, I think that some of the takeaways that I heard, to have successful dApps, we need a far better UX, and we need standards. Because without standards, no one actually can build something from outside saying, I want to invest a lot of millions on something that is not just, a test, but doing something. There are standardization process for the metaverse world, for the NFT world, and so on, and it is a part of the process. But until we won't have standards, until we won't have a better UX, could be through the account abstraction or ERC 6551 for the new NFTs that can own other tokens. Well, until we won't be there, it will be very difficult to see masses onboarding on Web3.
The concept of standards is very fascinating for me because you need to coordinate across many entities that have very different interests.
This is what happened for Bluetooth. This is what happened in the history of technology. At one point, either one of the players will be so big that will impose a standard to the others, or, as in Web3, where you don't have a major player, there must be a sort of consensus, a coordination mechanism where people will decide which are the best standards to use.
That is so hard to pull off, though. Standards are so difficult to get defined. I'm really, hands on heart, I do hope we get to a point where there are the kind of standards you described, but it's a lot of people getting together, talking for a very long time to get it right. It will take a long time, and I think it may end up being the biggest boy in the playground that's going to bully everybody into the way to go. I think.
Well, personally, I know about at least two big efforts. For example, there is OMA 3. There is a DAO, a standard DAO, where there is joined by Animoca, by all the main metaverses, in order to find a good way to do what we were saying before, how you can move one NFT from one metaverse to another, and many other standards. It will take time, a lot of it, but at least there are some efforts.
What's the name of that DAO?
OMA 3. Yeah.
Anything?
I was going to say, creating standards is not something new. If you look through the different historical progressions of technologies, you know, the S-curve of a new technology as it goes through early adoption, crossing the chasm, all that kind of stuff. I had the good fortune to participate in voice over IP, and Cisco Systems was the big player, and they tried to impose their standards, and then the standards body came in and did something different, although they incorporated some of them. And we've seen sometimes government push standards. The new iPhone 15 is coming out with USB-C, thanks to the European Union, right? And sometimes government investment does leadership. So in one aspect of what I mentioned earlier, decentralized identity and verifiable credentials, the World Wide Web Consortium published the 1.1 standard earlier this year for how to do these types of credentials. And now governments, the United States government, I know, and the European Union are putting forth privacy-preserving verifiable credentials using private key cryptography. So if that gets into effect, that'll be a standard. Now, as an aside, I don't think my identity comes from the government. My identity comes from the things that I've accomplished in my life and the relationships, and so I would love to see bottoms-up decentralized identity as well as state-imposed ones. But I think standards can happen, but it's messy. It's got to be people that get on the standards body and care about it and work and have the discussions. And sometimes companies need to sponsor people to go to those standards bodies. Anyway.
Amazing. Yeah, I think it would be interesting to see how these all compose with each other, right? If everybody tries to create a standard and then they're not compatible, it's like we will back into silos and we kind of missed the whole point. EVM is the standard, yes. It's one of the standards. Absolutely. Any questions, guys? Please, should I can come.
Thanks for the talk. It's very interesting. However, I'm not a gamer. I'm more into the ethical development of Ethereum as an ecosystem. So going back to scaling, I get to think of the trilemma. And I wonder, what's your position on decentralization? Because as of now, on one direction, there is this domination of Infura, which is really not good, I think, my humble opinion. And on the other side, how about sharding? Why only layer 2s? So it's twofold question.
Thank you. Let's take it.
Okay, I'm the one. Okay. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a very tough one question. So when we started, when LINEA was an R&D project at the very beginning, as I said before, we started on Rollup 5 years ago because our former head of R&D, that is now leading LINEA, was not really convinced by the sharding approach. It's much easier to scale through the L2 approach than the sharding one. The sharding has a lot of fundamental issue that over the time has been partially solved. We are not there yet. We need some more time. Sharding is part of the equation of the Ethereum 2.0. So we just need to give a bit more time. We are not there yet, not even with L2s, because L2 are all centralized as of today. All of us are all centralized as of today. So we are not there yet, not even with L2. But decentralization is a very critical one, and we should be very clever to avoid the same issue that we had on the layer 1. If we want to have a really permissionless, decentralized layer 2, it will just bring the same issues of the layer 1. So it will reduce the scalability. But do we really need this full permissionless decentralization on layer 2? Because what we really need, in my opinion, is to be censorship resistant and to avoid mismatching of the ordering of transaction. That's the two things that we really need. And probably this can be achieved without going into a full permissionless proof of stake, because our layer 2 inherits the security of the layer 1, that it's giving us all the decentralization factor that covers the security. So that's my take.
Yeah, and of course, I agree with Marco. The trilemma is about decentralization, security, and scalability. Well, L2s are about scalability, because we inherit security and decentralization from Ethereum. Of course, it's an open part of the decentralization. If we look at it from the devs and community participation perspective, well, no one of the L2s, in my opinion, will ever be able to compare the decentralization of Ethereum. If we are talking about the decentralization of the infrastructure, well, we go on a field that is more about the market and regulations. So we are not there because most of the world doesn't recognize what we do as something so meaningful to work on the real regulation, but we will be there. Amazon, without regulation, would be even bigger than what we see, and so on. So decentralization is a key. We hope that this decentralization topic will be taken care of, but L2s are about the scalability. L2s are not about the decentralization part because we inherit it from L1.
Fantastic, thank you so much. Any other questions, guys? Yes. Should I go there? Yeah, I did it once. Why not?
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. You were talking earlier about social gaming and different type of apps built on the blockchain. I'm wondering if you can share any thoughts about how would the discoverability of these applications would work in your opinion. I think, yeah, we can talk all we want about technology, about how we can build blockchains and apps and so on, but I think without having a way for users to discover these apps in an easy way, and also Marco mentioned about UX, and without great UX, we cannot reach the masses. So what's your thinking about that?
I think that right now, within the crypto space, a lot of times that we overcomplicate things when we explain stuff to builders in the Web2 space. We talk about ZK, we talk about fraud proof, etc. We talk about specs that traditional Web2 people don't understand. So in order to onboard all these Web2 builders, I would say, is to simplify all this stuff, explain people in a manner that they can understand like 5 years old children in general. And based on this understanding, they would only willing to try and to test out the technology. Of course, the tech itself needs to be ready enough to onboard all these users. But as Marco mentioned, UI experience and the way that you portray this message towards all these builders, the benefits it shouldn't be the way that we do before in general.
So what I've seen in other industries is that as the technology starts out, there's people that experiment with it, care about it a lot, start going out and using it, do user groups. But for it to get beyond that, it needs to go to the well-established ways of getting customers. And these might be dirty words, but that involves marketing, sales, finding product market fits, going out and assisting customers in discovering what their actual needs are, scoping out work, doing implementations, providing support, providing a full SaaS product, not just throwing some software or some servers with an interface out there and say, go for it. And whatever the way to do that marketing is within the current world, now it's probably through some type of Web2 apps, Twitter or heck, even Google AdWords. There are always going to be ways that marketing folks bring in new customers, and you need to bring them in, give them a good experience, and then have them tell their friends. So this is part of the evolution of technology, is to take on these standard ways of doing things that have proven to work in the past and implementing into our systems.
Yes, interesting concept, actually. I'm glad you asked the question. And I agree with what you're saying, Rolf. But I guess we're here at a conference where we're talking about the future. So I would like to think there's an alternative discovery journey that people can go on with Web3. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe it's, marketplaces with related dApps. I really don't know. I seem to remember, sorry, Marco, super early on in the life of Ethereum, there was, I'm sure there was like one web page you could go to that listed like 1 million dApps, when there were only like 1 million dApps, and you could pick and choose. Does anybody, did I imagine that? Okay, maybe I did. But maybe that will resurface in a different kind of format.
Yeah, I would love to build on top because I really love the Rolf approach. And my question is, we represent network here today. If I want to drive a parallel, it's like, did any internet service provider push it for the discoverability of, I don't know, Facebook or stuff like this. So I would say it depends. Like at this stage, we are not there yet to the mass adoption. So we as an ecosystem, as a part of duty to support builders and act as an amplifier for dApps. And yeah, we do, for example, we are the same family of MetaMask, we are Consensus, so we have MetaMask to tap into, the MetaMask community to tap into. So that's the support that we will have, but it's temporary, because the real discoverability should come from you, from dApps. It should be you that should be able to widen the scope. It's just like marketing and advertisement and stuff like this. I mean, at some point, we will need to be a commodity for builders. So I never seen my internet service provider distributing internet services or stuff like this, website.
Yeah, well, I agree. The fact is that there is always the doubt. We are the infrastructure. Should we talk for the developers? Are we the one that should make everything discoverable? On Polygon, we have right now 2 programs that are about discoverability. One is called Solution Provider Network and has about 150 big solution providers on our pages that are promoting what they're doing. Beside it, we are restarting a program, a smaller program that is called the Voucher Program, where we have all the solution providers in a kind of permissionless way that are able to post what they do in form of discounts or free services or free trial for everyone to use self-serve page to search the kind of service they are looking for. This is not the perfect solution. The perfect solution should come from the community. Someone should build a search engine for all the dApps. But let's remember we are talking about a permissionless world, so we should not force anyone to be listed. We should not force anyone to be there if they don't want. So it's really tough because, as Marco said, it's up to the devs to decide to make themselves visible. What infrastructure and the protocols could do is actually try to lower the opportunity cost to be visible, not to have to spend so much on marketing to become visible. This is the main problem. How the protocols, the infrastructure can help the devs to become visible without spending a lot of money for it. But there is not a solution actually for it.
And let me also draw a distinction. There's a different way of going to the market in business to business and business to consumer. I mean, you know, making a game that's a lot of fun that gets transmitted word of mouth to other people is a great way to do business to consumer marketing. So those are 2 totally different ways that need to go to market. Now, I think if you're marketing to developers, that's almost business to business, but like Gavin said, perhaps there's a new way to do this using the new technology that somebody will discover and make it work really well for folks.
Any other question, guys? Oh, yes.
Hi, thanks a lot for the panel. So do you think layer 2s and scalability solutions in general should have their own tokens? Or are they really necessary?
That's a good question. Should they have their own tokens? Okay, so coming from a project that does have its own token, and coming from a project that reinvented the use of their token, I guess I'm in a fairly good place to answer it. So why do we have a token, first of all? So the governance aspect, okay, that's quite useful. But in terms of having more utility, okay, so for Obscuro, we have a layer of validation nodes, and we want a node operator to be able to demonstrate that they're going to follow the rules of the protocol, they're going to follow the rules of the road. So we ask them to stake some tokens, and then they've got some skin in the game to not mess about, basically, with the nodes. That's a further usage, and I think that's happening elsewhere. And also having a form of having a presence so that we can provide future services back to the members of the Obscuro community that are really loyal to us and that actually want to have a larger a larger role within the project, because ultimately it'll all be moving to a DAO anyway. But in terms of actually paying for transaction fees, all that happens in ETH. So I guess there's two answers to your question, both yes and no. If you think you're going to charge transaction fees in a native token, then that's not necessary. We've already got ETH, it works perfectly well. But if you're looking to add value to how somebody interacts with your layer 2, then a token is a good way to enable all kinds of utility for that individual.
I think a token is very helpful. If you're going to develop some unique and interesting software, you got to pay developers to do it. And you can go the venture capital route and try to have venture capital invest in your organization, and then you'll have a bunch of obligations. I think tokens are a way to generate funding for an organization to hire developers and marketers and product managers and everything else you need to build something in a way that's more bottoms up. We have a token, Zen, and we did a fair launch. And instead of doing an initial ICO, we had to persuade the community that our token had value, and the more that we did that through demonstrated action repeatedly over time, the value of our token went up. So that was instant feedback from the market. We're now able to use it in governance in the DAO, to your point, Gavin. But that was what provided the funding mechanism for us. So from my standpoint, tokens are very helpful, whether it's for an L2 rollup project. Polygon has the Matic token that's being converted to Poly, and I saw recently that y'all are doing a 2% continuous emission, I think precisely for that reason, for project funding.
Yeah, well, I would start with saying that the three main reasons actually to have a token for L2 is about staking, validation, and governance. And then also there is the first reason that could be for ecosystem funding in some sort. We are going right now on evolving the Matic token to the Pol token, and we call it, well, we say that it has a super utility. It's super, and this utility is coming from the fact that you can use it to stake, to validate, and also to express governance on top of the protocol governance, the system, smart contract protocols, and so on. There will be this 2% emission, 1% of it will go to the validators as a form of rewarding for validators that are securing the chain and are giving the chance to all the chains to be secure. And the second, the other 1% will go to the community treasury in order, in the future, to fund ecosystem support in a decentralized way, building a new a sort of new human layer, let's say, where a Polygon won't be involved on the distribution of the token in order to become more and more decentralized from our governance point of view.
Yeah, I think that everyone that mentioned just now, it's pretty right. It depends on what kind of infrastructure providers you are. If you're just a pure RAS for OP Stack, for example, you don't have to have a token. But however, if you're making something more decentralized, more structured as governance, staking and validation, all this kind of stuff, or also if you want to grow your ecosystem more aggressively in general, this is a good way to engage your community. A very good example is Arbitrum. They have a security council whereby they use ARP token as the voting mechanism for the DAO in general. So this is a good tool for people to govern the ecosystem. At the meantime, it lets people have an activity and engagement to participate inside the ecosystem in general, other than just using the infra in general. Yeah.
Fantastic. Marco, we all took note that you didn't answer to this question, so maybe as we wrap up, yeah, I wanted to thank all the panelists. We can do maybe one last final round to understand what's next for you guys. What are the next steps, next big milestones that are awaiting us? Where do we start? Do we want to start from Gavin?
Thanks. I'll keep it short. So where are we? I literally was just reading Discord before this, and our testnet release is super close to being released by QA. So well, our testnet will be out there next week. So come along, have a look, try it out, deploy your Solidity dApp to Obscuro and gain instant privacy.
If you have a project that you're looking to build on an Ethereum virtual machine, please come talk to the Horizon business development team. We have a lot of experience, we've got great developers, and we want to help you succeed.
Well, we started the Polygon 2.0 roadmap. We are going through it. We are going to evolve the POS chain. We're going to evolve the token, and we will try to go on to all the 3 pillars of good governance, 3 pillars that we spoke about. It's about the governance protocol, the smart contract protocols, and the community treasury.
So for Outlayer side, the roll-up side of things is already launched. Anyone could just go to dashboard.outlayer.com. You are able to launch your own roll-up already. So the next step for us is to decentralize the sequencers in general, so that each of the roll-ups spin up by Outlayer is not handled by us in general. Instead, it's handled by a pool of sequencers. It could be anyone, including anyone in the room, even node operators or any companies that want to run their own sequences in general. And the 2 core functions is decentralized sequencing and decentralized verification for all the rollouts spin up by Outlayer protocol in general. Yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to LINEA, we have a pretty detailed roadmap on our website. We are now focusing on stabilizing the network because we just launched it. It was 2 months ago we went live in it. We are focusing on stabilizing the network and finalizing all the performance improvement, including proof aggregation, data compression, and 4844 support. That will radically change the game. The 4844 will be, for every rollup, will be so powerful that we will have a global celebration for this, with many global meetups hosted by LINEA. And then starting from hopefully January, because our roadmap depends on Ethereum roadmap, we will just focus on the decentralization, starting from the prover, then the sequencer, and then LINEA will be decentralized.
Global parties, guys, that's the best news ever. I want to thank everybody. I think it was an insightful and very exciting conversation about the future of scaling it. And thank you everybody for being here. A big round of applause for the speakers. And thank you.